Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and thanks for watching. Well, we're going to use this special edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers to make you aware of an issue of children's grief, something we don't often talk about, and then we'll have our popular financial literacy update after these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
All right, well, I know when you tune into this program, we talk a lot about heavy-duty policy issues. We get into politics. We have all sorts of politicians and political leaders on the program. Well, not this week. We're going to talk about an issue I think that needs some greater awareness, and we're going to try to make you more aware of a problem, and that is what to do about kids when they go through some trauma in their lives, often the loss of a loved one or some other kind of crisis in their lives. Joining me to talk about that is Terese Vorsheck. She is the director of Highmark Caring Place, which is a center for grieving children, adolescents, and their families. Terese, welcome.
Terry, thank you.
Let me get this straight. Vorsheck, is that how you say that?
Vorsheck.
Vorsheck. Mm-hmm. All right. That's pretty correct.
Yeah, you're close. That's
good.
At
any rate, let's talk a little bit about this program. First of all, this is a program that Highmark has, and it's a program that's been around since 1996. And though we often think of sending we send some kids to counseling when they have behavioral problems, and we know a lot about adult counseling. Mm-hmm. But quite frankly, I've never heard of until this moment when you've come on this program about, first of all, a center for grieving kids and how you would approach what to do with kids, when they've lost someone close to them or they've been involved in some family tragedy. Talk about that conceptually, before we get into the details of the Highmark program.
Sure. Terry, what a lot of people don't realize is the prevalence of this issue. And 1 in 20 children will have a parent die before they graduate from high school. So a lot of people don't understand that for every classroom, every Girl Scout troop, every Boy Scout troop, every sports team where you have 20 children, at least one of them will have had a parent die before they graduate from high school. And that doesn't include the death of grandparents and siblings and close aunts and uncles. So there's a lot of children who are grieving the death of a family member, and a lot of people don't understand how prevalent the issue is.
Yeah, it could even be, kids get attached, to peers, and
certainly
sometimes the loss of a peer. In general, am I right that is this something that our society, that we're not paying close enough attention to, or that we don't do enough about as on a whole? This is not something that I'm even vaguely familiar with, having reared a couple of kids myself. Unfortunately,
Terry, I think it is an issue that doesn't get enough attention given the prevalence of it. Yeah. But what a lot of people don't realize is that when a child experiences the death of a family member, really their whole world is turned upside down. We think of children as being sad when somebody dies, but especially if it's the death of a parent, that's typically just the first of many changes that a child will incur following that death.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk specifically about the Highmark Caring Place. I think I understand now why you created it. What you actually do there, I think, is very important. We'll be back after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Pennsylvania Medical Society. Doctors and patients, preserve the relationship. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program. A little different kind of program today on Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We're chatting about Highmark's Caring Place and this the problem that gets created when children in particular have a situation involving a good bit of grief. Terese, let's talk a little bit about what a Caring Place is and what you all try to accomplish there.
Terry, at our program, we provide peer support group programs for children and their families after the death of a family member. so that the children and the adults in the family, when somebody dies, they come to our program. And the basic idea is to bring children together with other children who have had a death in their family, so that they can share their experience with one another, share their memories, share their feelings, and talk about the impact of the death on their lives with other kids who understand what they're going through.
Now, this is a family-based therapy. Is it a therapy? Is
It's
that
actually
the right
not
word?
therapy, because
therapy.
we're not doing therapy. We're actually a volunteer-based program, but we're working with the children, again, in peer support, bringing them together, and the adults as well. The adults as well. It's the adults and children. It's the family.
So go through the process. I mean, I think this is sort of important for people to understand. So is it just basically the young people, talking about their feelings, having been through this crisis? I mean, is there advice given? Is there strategies to kind of cope with the grief? I mean,
it's all of that, basically. It's when we bring the families together, what happens is we facilitate discussions and different types of activities with the adults and with the children that will help them, through the sharing of their memories and their feelings and their experiences, help them develop better coping mechanisms for what's happened in their life.
Right. Now, the way the program works is it's not as though if there's let's say a death in a family, you wouldn't go and be among the first to be on the scene.
That's right.
You would wait some time period, and then hopefully, family members of a kid who's going through some unusual stress as a result of this would come to you. So you're not in other words, a kind of a first responder.
We're not a first responder. In fact, we won't contact the families. We're not a first responder. We do outreach into the community to raise awareness of the issue and of our program, and that will hopefully get the information to the families, and then they call us and we walk them through the process.
Now, this is the environment there at first thought might seem to be a downer, somber, but that's not at all the expectation, or it's not at all the way the program functions.
It really isn't the case, and that is a very unfortunate myth about the program. And in fact, if you would come and see the program, the kids laugh more than they cry there, because it's a place where they can come and be understood in a way that they're not understood outside.
All right, we're going to continue this discussion. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back in a few moments, and we'll see you then.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We're using part of this program to talk about, help raise the awareness about the issue of children's grief. Terese, I want to get into some of the events and programs that you all are sponsoring. But before I do that, let me make sure that our viewers understand this point, that this program is open to anyone. You don't have to be insured by Highmark to obtain the services of this program, correct?
That is true. It's open to anybody in the community at no cost.
All right, and at the end of this segment, we'll put up some contact information. The other thing is that this program also has acquired some, support from legislators in the Pennsylvania legislature. That's a fact as well, correct?
That is true. We've had several legislators who have come through our program and have used the facility to raise the awareness of the issue of children's grief for their constituents.
All right. In the remaining time, let's talk a little bit about the future. I think you've done a great job of explaining, what the program is about, why you do it. What about some events for the future so that our viewers can plug into them if they care to?
We are just restarting our children grief support groups, so anybody who might need the help could call and inquire about the groups. We also have an initiative within the schools called the Caring Team for Children that we will be kicking off again in October. And so anybody that would be interested in having the Caring Place come into their schools and talk about
Let's talk about that a little more. I mean, I think, so what you're saying is basically if there's a school district in which they want to get, do programs for teachers in particular who may, have students who have a situation where the child is in grief, let's say because of a loss of a parent or something, that they could actually, you folks would come in and talk to them and tell them about the services that you have?
Exactly. We provide consultation services to professionals in the community. So if there is an issue that they have in the school or mental health counselors, any type of professional in the community that works with children, we work as consultants with them.
Yeah. And I want to make this clear. This is free.
It's all free.
I mean, look, it doesn't get any better than this. It's free. There's no charge.
No
You'll
charge
come in
for
and do
any
this.
of it. We'll do it all. We'll provide written resources, consultation, education, support for the kids. Anything that we can do to help.
All right, as we go out of this segment, I want to put up on the screen some telephone numbers and internet URL for you to consult if you want to. Write these numbers down. I think this is pretty important. At any rate, I want to, thanks for coming on the program. I hope this program. Look, I'm excited about the schools. I'd love to see. I mean, that's a place where you get parents and kids and teachers involved in this, and so they're more aware of it, and it's been great having you on the program.
Thank you, Terry.
All right, our popular financial literacy update, it's coming up soon after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Penn Future, where we believe that every environmental victory grows the economy, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers for our popular financial literacy update. Joining me today is Abby Achey, who is the CEO of the Red Rose Credit Union. Credit Union, stop right there, right?
Correct.
Red Rose Credit Union, and of course, our old friend Mike Wishnow, who's the Senior Vice President with the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Welcome back, Mike.
Well, thanks, Terry.
Well, I don't know why I want to stick association in there, but that's okay. Union, you've got the association.
We got the association.
All right. Michael, we're going to talk today about credit and folks who, relatively modest means, let's be candid, sometimes poor folks who are trying to get credit, build a credit, like the rest of us. Let's talk about some of the problems that folks of modest means, poor folks have, whether they be, whites or minorities. What are some of the problems that they have?
Well, Terry, as you know, there are really two financial systems out there. There's a system that you and I and many of our viewers use, which are wealth-building financial institutions, and they would include credit unions, stockbrokers, financial planners, banks, S&Ls. And then there's a whole group out there that are what I would call wealth strippers. These are folks that are using payday lenders, rent-to-own companies, pay-as-you-go, strip mall lenders, title lenders, that kind of a thing. And those people, frankly, are paying considerably higher for their financial services than those of us that are in the mainstream.
So if you borrow, the bottom line is if you go and borrow money, you're going to pay more from them, and often, there's lots of federal and state investigations now into predatory lending practices. So your point is that many consumers, poor consumers, are getting ripped off, as well as others in the middle class, but disproportionately among the poor. Is that what you're saying?
Right, the ones that can least afford it, right, Abby?
Correct.
Yeah.
We have a large majority of members that switch over to get away from cash payday lenders.
Yeah. All right. Well, building on that, let's talk a little bit about what can be done for folks to avoid that. What are programs and plans that work for people who are in that situation to build wealth, as you put it, to avoid payday lending, to avoid getting themselves caught up in those situations where they borrow money they can't pay back, or borrow money or use credit for which they end up paying very large interest rates at the back end. Now, Abby, you have some programs going on that I think are important for our viewers, because as they're building blocks for folks who are trying to move into the wealth building situation. Tell us about some of them.
Well, one of the most important, I feel, is the checking account program that we offer members. We offer no minimum balance, which they don't have to pay fees on a monthly basis. And that allows them to have the money deposited, withdraw it when they need it, and not worry about keeping $200 in and having a service fee if they don't.
Yeah, what about if you want to go get a mortgage, which is, I think, something that everybody, it's sort of the American dream. How would you handle mortgages? Is that, go ahead, is that, you still have to be prepared to, make the payments and the down payments, but is the advice there for folks to know whether they can really sufficiently afford to buy, or they can effectively afford to buy a house?
We do some credit counseling, yes. We don't offer a first mortgage program where they can borrow the money to purchase the home with us, but we do a lot of counseling beforehand, and we have mortgage professionals on staff that offer advice and what to look for in fees, what not to look for, and possibly refer them to different mortgage companies as well as CUNA Mortgage.
Yeah. Now, Mike, that's particularly important. I think we've heard a lot, we've just done a program recently on this whole business of subprime mortgage, how important it is to make sure that you can pay. If you buy a house, you can make the payments on the house, that you're not getting into a situation. What is it that people should do? I mean, particularly folks that we're talking about now, low income and minorities, to make sure that they don't get ripped off in this regard.
Well, certainly there are some steps that anyone can take regardless of income, and that is, A, shop around. I mean, that's the best basic consumer advice. Shop around. I think you're going to find that at a credit union, you're going to find pricing that'll be market competitive. The second sort of caveat is be very, very careful of mortgage solicitations that come your way that you haven't asked for.
Yeah.
A lot of times the stuff that's coming looking for you is not the best deal for you. But I know in Lancaster, for example, there's a group of credit unions working with the Latino community, with the Hispanic community. And a lot of that is education-based, right, Abby?
Education-based, and that is probably the most important thing of all for consumers that are going out to look for a mortgage, is get the education ahead of time, find out what you can afford before you start looking at houses, and then try to get your mortgage after.
Abby, let's continue this discussion with this outreach, particularly for minorities. Taking a look specifically at the Hispanic community, it's a very substantial. They are a very substantial proportion of the population of Pennsylvania, about 400,000 overall. They have been, and minorities in general, have been the victims of a lot of the things that Michael and I were talking about, the predatory lending schemes. What do you say about what you all have been trying to do in Lancaster County in particular, which is the home to a substantial number of Hispanics and minorities, to try to bring them in, so to speak, to the financial mainstream, to make sure that they get credit, they get it properly, that they're, what programs do you have going on that's helpful to them?
Well, first off, the group of credit unions in Lancaster, about 7 of us, got together, and we realized that there was a need to reach out to the underserved communities within our county. And by researching who needed the most help, we came up with a program with the Pennsylvania Foundation to reach out to the Hispanic community through a radio station, WLCH. And through that, they do a money program, You and Your Money, and it is in English and Spanish. They do translate for you when you do attend the radio program, and we talk about everything from youth accounts to credit.
Sure.
So education is the primary consideration for the consortium.
So what you're doing basically is sort of expanding the outreach to make sure that a community that may not be as aware of all the options that are available, this is essentially an education program, the same as, credit unions and banks and other financial institutions would provide the same that everybody else would expect to get, correct, Michael?
Correct. And I think the important point, as Abby mentioned, is it is in Spanish language. And there's a natural barrier in the Hispanic community if they don't speak the language. So if you're going to reach out to that community, you really have to do it in their language, on their terms, and let them know they are welcome to join these 7 credit unions in Lancaster County.
Right.
So what do you think the overall success has been? I mean, is this something, I mean, are you making any headway into building these relationships?
Yes, I do feel that all the credit unions in Lancaster, as well as other parts of the state, are reaching out and educating. They're building a comfort zone for the Hispanic community, and building trust is very, very important. And one thing that I found in surveying some of our Hispanic members is that they will tell their friends, their family, about the service they're receiving and the education they're receiving, and how we've been able to fix possibly some poor credit they've had in the past, help them prepare to buy a house. So word of mouth as well as education is very, very important.
Now, the programs in Lancaster County, what's the future here, Michael? Is this something that needs to be expanded throughout the state, particularly in regions where, there are minority populations, recent arrivals to our country, and now, we weren't going to get into whether illegal or legal. We're now primarily, I think, talking about folks who are working, who are trying, have families who are trying to, build this nest egg that you and I always talk about.
Right. Yeah, I think that we can point to the Lancaster Consortium as a model. It's a cooperative venture between 7 credit unions to reach out to a minority community. There are other programs throughout the state where credit unions are indeed serving niche communities, if you will. There's a credit union in Carlisle that has a large program with the Bosnian community of all things. So, yeah,
but I understand. Well, look, this is an important. Financial institutions understand this is something they're doing. They want to make money. Hopefully, you want to make a profit. Even though you're not for profit. You know what I mean. And you want to do it in a way that helps people, right?
Correct.
So, and it's not the government. I mean, the government's not forcing you into this, correct?
That's correct.
So this is all voluntary.
Sure, and it makes good sense from a business perspective, as you've pointed out, but B, and probably more importantly, it allows credit unions to fulfill their philanthropy, their duty to their community.
You get the last word. Thanks for watching. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers.